Hi class, today I'm going to be talking about arrays for the Teachback project. So what is an array? An array is kind of like a variable, well, more like a chain of variables. You could think about it like a train, with the train car being the, what's it called? The creation of the array, so it would go something like this. The name and the data type, along with how many, and then you could think of the train cars as being the different numbers or elements of the array. So the elements of the array are going to be the numbers that the array has within it. So for this example, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Easy enough. And then to end it, semicolon. There we go. It's kind of like a sandwich there. And you could think of all those values within it kind of separate from everything else. It's trapped within that its own kind of confined space inside the array. But we can access those different values and do a lot of things with them. For example, how we would get them out as to kind of show that they're there in their spot, we could go out and kind of just print them out. So let's try the first index and let's see what we get. So we're going to get 2 here, not because I did anything wrong, but because in an array, and like with many things inside of computer programming, this isn't the first index, or like actual spot where the element is. This is index 0. So in an array, the location of the first element is going to be the 0 index. So then it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's not 5 spaces here. Well, there technically is, but it's numbered 0 to 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 0, 1, 2, yeah, well, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 5 total, but they're not numbered 1 through 5, like you might assume. So let's look at some examples of arrays and usages of them. So in this old program I have from CompSci 1 that I've modified a little bit, here we're trying to get the largest number in an array, but so in this function we're getting the largest number in an array, and then in this other instance we're getting the smallest. However, the thing that stays the same between them both is going to be this. The user is going to input the information for the array. So they're not going to necessarily input the size, but they are going to input the elements that go within each index. And then from there, the program is going to decide which one is going to be the largest within that. So let's run that. So enter a number in the 0 index. So I'm going to put 1, 2 for the first, 3 for the second, 4 for the third, fourth, and fifth. And the largest number is going to be 6. So going back to the code, the for loop is going to loop through the array, and it's going to keep incrementing and getting spaces for all the numbers. So first it's going to start out, please enter a number, and it's going to take in the first number, slot it into the first index, which is index 0, and then it's going to go on from there. And then once here, it's going to go here up to this function where it takes the array values, and then it kind of just sorts through them, and then the value that is the largest number is going to be set as the integer value of the largest. And then that's going to be outputted and printed out on the screen. And it's going to be the same thing for the smallest number, just kind of the opposite way. It's going to take the array inputs for the different indexes, and kind of just scan through it and see which one's going to be the smallest element or value within each of the indexes. And it's going to just increment through them, and it's going to kind of, so for this one, it's 5, 6, 1, 10, 11, 17. And it's just going to say, okay, 5's small, we're going to start there. Then it's going to go to 6. Well, 5 is smaller than 6, so that one isn't going to be it. But then 1 is smaller than 6 and 5, so it's going to go 1. It's going to change the value to 1. And then 10, 11, and 17 are not bigger or smaller than 1, I mean. So those ones are going to be kind of like discarded, ignored. So it's going to stay, the value is going to stay at 1. And you can also add the numbers in an array, which I forgot to mention that I do within this. So within the different output for asking the user to input each value into the array, right here, as it increments to the next index, it also adds how many indexes there are, or what the value is within said index that it before it goes on to the next. So then that's going to be the total. So it's plus adding the total or the number at that index that it's incrementing from. So for this one, it's going to be the 0 index. So here it's going to be num0 is what that really means at first. So it's going to take that 5 there, and then it's going to keep it, set the total equal to 5, and it's going to loop around and just keep going, slowly adding up the numbers from each of the indexes within the array. So all in all, an array is pretty much just a giant variable. It contains different values. There can also be character string arrays. So you could write out sentences, alter sentences within an array by changing the numbers and letters. And with the whole adding and then setting at first each of the indexes and what values are in them, you can also change them at a later time. So you can dynamically edit, or you can dynamically kind of add values and change values within an array. There's also dynamic arrays, which can increase in size kind of at will depending on what you might need to use. So let's say, for example, you're adding how many materials you have. Let's say you're in a construction company and you only manage to buy a certain amount of materials, but you need more. So you need to add them to the list. So you could say you got 6 pounds of concrete or whatever. And then that's what you had at first. So that's what you kind of set the array to at first. But then you need to set it again later on. So later on, you can access a program and you can code in the extras. And then an array is pretty useful for a lot of things like that. Just changing, allocating, and using kind of a bigger umbrella for a lot of different variables that could go together, such as test scores. And that is my presentation Teachback on arrays.